Well, Paula, I understand you're not going to make the meeting today, so I miss you, even if Jake doesn't.
I do miss her. We'll watch it together later.
Oh, that's good. So there's a question I want to ask, but I kind of don't want to ask, and I'll share my screen with you. Uh, I don't know which one it is that I'm sharing, but yeah, it's this one here. So you remember we talked about this at our last meeting, and you and Paula were going to talk to your lawyer and see what he had to say. Did you have a chance to talk to him about it?
Yeah, he hasn't got. We just hasn't got back to us. Paul and I did talk more about it and did kind of like a little information thing on it, recording, and I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. So, I hopefully he doesn't see any issues with it, but it's awesome.
Well, I wanted to point out to you and Paula that this trailing revenue thing that we talked about, the royalty thing on revenues and possibly on sales too, is in some ways for the fund better than an ownership stake in Tartan or Tartan projects. So let me give you an example. Let's say the fund was to lend you and Paula as Tartan Developments $500,000, for this Agritainment idea of yours.
Yep.
And so here's $500,000. We're going to charge 10 or 12%, maybe 15%, whatever you decide. Tartan Investments Inc. is going to charge. So it could be 10 to 12%, but it could be 15%. Because it's not a mortgage, it's secured by promissory notes, a little bit more risk. So maybe we'll go to 15 points. So that's good. They make a spread. Maybe the investors are getting 8% or 10% of their money, and you're getting 12 or 15%. So there's a spread that goes to Tartan Investments Inc. And the good news is that the investors not only are getting 8% or 10% on their money, they're also part owners of this fund, so they're getting part of the spread. So all of that's good. But let's say they loan you $500,000 to develop this Agritainment use in Florida. And in return, they get trailing revenue. So let's say this thing has, I don't know, $400,000 a year in revenues, for the next 20 years. And the royalty is, say, 5%. So it means that it's a very easy thing to calculate, right? If we said it was 20% of the profits, well, as you know, you could define profits to be zero pretty much.
Yes.
If we say it's 5% of revenues, that's a little harder to disguise, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're generating $400,000 a year in Agritainment revenues. If 5% of that is $20,000 a year for the next 20 years, that's $400,000 that goes back here. Now, 20 years from now, you sell the farm, the Agritainment use, and let's say you sell it for, I don't know, I'm making up a number, $10 million. Well, again, 5% of that goes back to the fund. So that's $500,000. Again, very easy to calculate. Sold it for $5 million or $10 million, whatever. 5% of that is maybe $500,000. And in a way, as I was saying earlier, that royalty on revenues and sales is better than owning, because let's say the fund owned 20% of the property, and maybe this farm has gone through 5 refinances in the next 20 years, and yes, you sell it for $10 million, but you had $9 million in financing.
Yeah.
So 20% of the $1 million that is left over might be $200,000 instead of $500,000. So in many ways, I think this is better for the fund. People might say, well, I want to own, because people are really hung up on ownership, but a royalty might actually be better. I mean, if you think about franchise models, the franchise models, they don't say we want to own part of your franchise. They say we want to get 6 or 8% royalty on sales.
Yep.
There's a reason they prefer that.
I love it. I had a quick question about this, Bruce. Since we're talking about it, I was going to email you. I had another idea with this too. So for some of our new builds, we're getting obviously first position construction loan, and then there's obviously a gap. Would this work? And in your experience, do lenders allow, like, if we put a second on this and that made up the gap, use a second from the fund or from the investment corp on the
Well, you specifically wouldn't do that. Like we designed this, you and I and Paula, we had our conversation, I guess, last week. We specifically designed this so that you would lend the money to Tartan and secure it with promissory notes as opposed to a second mortgage.
Okay.
And the reason we did that is, let's say, we'll take the Agritainment example. Let's say you bought a farm for $1 million, and you got a mortgage of 50% loan to value. So you got a first mortgage of 50%. You know, in Canada, we have a Farm Credit Corp, which will loan much more than 50%. You know, they'll lend much more for farmers. And so you could get maybe 90% from Farm Credit Corp. But let's just say that you go to a lending institution. We bought this nice farm. We intend to keep it as a farm, and we would like a 50% loan to value first mortgage. Oh, we can do that. And instead of charging you 15%, maybe they charge you 6 or 7 these days, right? So, okay. The company, Tartan Development, needs another $500,000 to close the transaction. Well, you borrow, if you look over here, you know, maybe this company will agree to allow you to go up to 95% loan to value, but that's not 95% loan to value mortgages. It's 95% loan to value first mortgage and promissory notes. So then this fund will lend you, you know, say $450,000 on the terms and conditions we've been talking about. Now you've got $950,000 to close a $1 million transaction. The other 50 you find somewhere else.
Yep.
You know, you look in your couch.
Yep, for sure.
You open that, you pull the pillows up, and then, oh look, there's 50,000, Paula. Let's go and buy a farm.
That's
so right. Now, here's the good news: is that when your first mortgagee looks at the property, looks at the title, they say, oh my gosh, Paula and Jake have this beautiful farm worth $1 million or more, and they only have $500,000 of mortgage debt on it. So you look like heroes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it has, and some of these funds will go up to 100% loan to value, right? If they're comfortable with you as this side of the equation as well as this side of the equation, right? So you make that decision. I just put in 90 or 95% loan to value just to tell the investors that we expect a little bit of skin in the game from Tartan Developments.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so that's kind of what I have in mind. And you know, I coach a number of large developers who have exactly this kind of a setup or very similar to this. And you know, this fund over here, you know, could be $750 million, not $1 million. I have a bit of a cold, sorry.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, no, it's like as Paul and I were going through it last night. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's a really good model, and I don't want to just love it. I want to make sure that we implement it.
We are 100%.
Because you know, it's a big stressor on all of us, you and me, and virtually every other real estate company that doesn't have a fund. And most of the big guys, whether they're equity funds like BlackRock, which I think their funds are in the tens, maybe even the hundreds of billions. You know, it might even be $1 trillion. I don't know. It's some incredible number, but that gives them real power to move much faster than you and I can.
For sure. So
if we could develop this fund, and you give it some name, maybe you don't call it Tartan Investments Inc., because that might be a little confusing with Tartan Developments. Which one is which, you know? So you might give it, I was thinking, a different name. You know, look for another Scottish term, you know? Yeah. My wife is a McMillan.
Oh, okay, nice.
And her ancestry is Scottish and Irish, and so you know you might have the Tartan Fund and the McMillan Fund or something like that.
Yep, for sure. No, I like that.
Yeah, so something probably is better to do that. So
Bruce, do you see that? Not to keep talking about this, but I do love this. So would you raise funds in that, like, to what amount? Like
so for you and Tartan, I think you should target $1 million initially, and in the next 2 or 3 years you should try and get to 10 million.
Okay.
Because when you get to 10 million, that business, as we discussed last time, becomes a business in itself. right? Because I'll come knocking on your door and say, hey, I've got a project I want to do in LASQUETI. Can you top up my funds? You know, if you like it, trust me, by $500,000. So you know, and you can make money with that company, you know, acting as a funder for other projects. Again, only with real estate entrepreneurs that you like and trust.
For sure.
That's it. And you put in whatever language you need to put in so that you only invest, Jake, you and Paula, whether it's your own projects or anybody else's, mine or anybody else's, you only invest in projects that you would want to own and operate yourself if you had to. So
Yes.
if somebody like me comes along and says, hey, can I have $500,000 to develop LASQUETI Island? And you say, sure, we like you, Bruce, and here's your 12% or 15% loan, and good luck. But if I don't pay, you want to be able to step in, and you're going to own the thing.
Yep.
So you want to make sure that you like the projects. And if you think, oh, that project, you know, I'm not sure that makes economic sense, then you don't lend, because you want to make sure that is viable on its own. And you definitely don't want to be involved in a power sale. The worst time to sell a property is when it's in financial difficulties, right? So a foreclosure, you know, is something that if you had a mortgage, you would put foreclosure rights in the mortgage, so you could foreclose, kick Bruce to the curb. You and Paula own it. The fund owns it. You operate it. And if you decide to keep it, fine. If you decide to sell it, fine. But you don't have to disclose a damn thing. Imagine if you had these funds, the loans out, and 5 of them went bad. Under power sale, you have to put them on MLS and say it's power sale. All the vultures come out. It becomes a project that's got a smell associated with it. And don't forget, once you register power sale on title, it's there forever, you know, for the next 200 years. So it's better, I think, to foreclose.
I agree.
All right, so tell me about what you're thinking of for the home run class. You and Paula are going to present an Agritainment use in I think it was Lee County.
Yes, yeah. So we'd love to do that, and we kind of shared with you the few ideas that we had, but we wanted to get your feedback on things like, and I read your email too, and yeah, we need to kind of really define what we're doing. Yeah, as we started brainstorming, the stuff that we sent you was kind of where our minds went, but
yeah, it was good, but you know, so one of the things that, you know, I know a little bit about the subject because I coach quite a few people in this area now, you know, going back more than 30 years to Saunders Farm. If you recall, I've talked to you about Saunders Farm before.
Yep.
And it's an Agritainment use. So I wanted to show you just a couple of very specific examples, which I did allude to in my email, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So I did want to show you something that an Indigenous person did. And when I talk about specifics, I don't mean that you and Paula would do this, but this has been successful. And it's very, very, very simple model. And so this Indigenous person, who was quite elderly, came to me, and he was quite a famous person in his day, but he had fallen on hard times financially, and unfortunately. And you know, so we talked about what he could do next, and he was into sweat lodge experiences for himself, right? He's an Indigenous person originally from Saskatchewan, and in his early 40s, did I ever tell you the story, Jake?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But in his early 40s, he was very sick from eating white man's food. He didn't know that, but he was really sick, and he thought he was going to pass away in his 40s. He's now well into his 80s, maybe even early 90s, and he's doing very well. But he went back to his tribe in Saskatchewan and said, look, I'm sick. I don't know what's the matter with me. If I'm going to die, I want to die here with my tribe. Mm-hmm. And the elders knew right away, you've been eating shitty white man's McDonald's food. I actually kind of like McDonald's food, but it may not be really good for us as white folk, but for Indigenous people, it's really bad. So they said, we're going to put you in a sweat lodge for as long as you could take it. He spent over 3 days in the sweat lodge. And he said to me, all the poisons came out of my system. I had this green goo coming out of my skin, and all the, excuse my language, but all the shit was coming out of my body. But after in and out over 3 days of the sweat lodge, you know what a sweat lodge is, right?
Yeah.
You go in there and you sweat. But after 3 days or thereabouts, he came out, he felt better. And they said, look, you can only eat, nuts and berries and things that for 30,000 years, at least, his ancestors have been eating. You can't eat McDonald's. Sorry. I know you like it, but you can't. It's just not going to work for you. And I don't mean to pick on McDonald's. It wouldn't matter. You can't buy a roast from from the store, from the freezer section. It just, all the stuff in that our food chain, he couldn't tolerate it.
Yeah.
So this is a property that I own, actually, and you can sort of see there's a pond here.
Yep.
And he asked my permission, could I build a sweat lodge on around the pond? I said, sure. But I have one condition. He said, what is it? That I be allowed to help you. Because, I'm old too, but he's even older.
Yeah.
And so myself and some young people went to the property. And what you do is you go select, just branches, and you bend them and you anchor them, as you can see sort of over here in the ground. And you bend them, you tie them with ribbons. And then you put, a fire pit in the middle. And you're really supposed to cover the lodge with buffalo hides, but hunting buffalo is not exactly something. We're about 300 years late for that.
Yes.
So we just put blankets on, and the next, you can sort of see a little bit more. Is just a kind of a car tent, and there's the sweat lodge in the back. And just because it's cold in Ottawa, pretty much 11 months a year. We have a stove there outside. And there's another view of the sweat lodge here. You can see some of the rocks that we use. Obviously, you have to use igneous rock, not limestone. Limestone has a lot of water, and if you heat those rocks up, they explode. The next thing you know, you're missing an eye, right? So you have to know what you're doing. And there you can see the pond. And then there's the firewood we use, and there's a better view of the pond.
Beautiful.
So I said, well, I'll call him Bill. That's not his real name. I don't want to use his real name because he is very well known. I said, Bill, a lot of white folks, not just older people like me, but young people like you and Paula and others would, I'm sure, pay to come and learn 30,000 years of sweat lodge training, because there's a whole ceremony. You go in, and Bill would have his pipe there, and he grows his own tobacco. So it's not like the tobacco you get in cigarettes with 1,000 additives. It's just natural tobacco that they grow. There's no shit in them, and so you smoke a peace pipe. There's some drumming, but there's no drugs. There's no alcohol. You smoke a little bit of, there's a little bit of smoke going on, and there's some prayers that are said, and you stay there as long as you can. You go in and out, you go in the pond to cool off if you need to. You make sure you're hydrated, and you sweat out all kinds of poisons. All right. Well, and he said, Bruce, I can't charge anything for my sweat lodge training. I said, you can't? Why not? He said, well, because the lore of 30,000 years of training, it says it has to be free. Has to be given away free. Oh, I said, I know a little bit about Indigenous culture. I lived with the Hopi Indians for 6 months when I was a young fellow in Four Corners in the United States, with a very pretty girl, I might add, which added something to the experience. And so I know a little bit about Indigenous folk, and I know that they think very differently from you and I. Very differently. For example, you talk to a chief and you think, okay, chief, let's do X, Y, and Z. And he says, yes, that sounds like a good idea, Bruce. But that isn't a yes. He has to consult with every member of the tribe. And they have to all agree, or nothing happens. So being a chief is like what it used to be like to be a mayor. You only have one vote amongst 20, right? All the councillors have a vote. You have one vote. Now, Ontario has changed that. The mayors in in Toronto and Ottawa now have a super vote, right?
So yeah.
But that's new. But Mr. Ford has changed that. But previously, the mayor was like a chief. He had a vote, but that was all. And if he didn't like the way you were going to vote as a councillor, he could take you off a committee and make your life a little bit difficult, cut your budget maybe. But still, he only had, or she only had, one vote. So a chief is a lot like that. So they're first among equals. And so he certainly can't go against 30,000 years of training. But I said to him, Bill, why don't you set up some glamping sites around and you could charge for that? So that's what he did. He built 8 glamping sites around there, and holy smokes, it was really popular. Lots of young people and not so young people would go for, the weekend, and they would pay quite a bit of money. And so by, I think, year 2, he was making over $100,000 a year from his 8 glamping sites, and his training was free. The reason I tell you that is that if you, that wouldn't suit you and Paula, but if you were teaching something very specific like that,
yep,
it's easy to, immediately say, yeah. And you might hang other things. You might, have a registered massage therapist come along and give massages, and there might be a million other things to do. You might have a pickleball court or whatever else, but that is the thing that drives. It's called a wedge product. It's like icebreakers. They don't slam into the ice. They look for a crack, and then they open that crack wider and wider and wider, right? If you've ever done any ice breaking, you'll know what I'm talking about. So you need a wedge product.
Okay.
So what is it?
I see. I'm trying to balance our ideas with zoning. I don't want to get into that kind of stuff. Like, I want everything to be within the zoning, not a lot of headaches.
I agree.
So I like, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. I think if we can kind of brainstorm some ideas here, I'll kind of tell you what the parcels we were looking for, 10 to 20 acres, obviously with an agricultural part. But yeah, like I'm open to ideas. And I think I get what you're saying about the wedge. We need the wedge, but we can also do other things, right? But we need that main primary thing.
But what I'm saying, I want you to really focus in on this. You need a hook.
Yeah.
A hook, because 100%. Think about, Paula's I'm saying thank you to Paula, and make sure she watches this so I can say thank you again. She gave us, my wife and I, some advice about Airbnb. She was a master, and I'm very grateful for the advice that she gave. So one of the things that I think should be part of your hook is that whatever it is you do, people will come away and they will have learned something.
I agree.
All right. So the reason that Bill's Sweat Lodge training has been a success, providing him in his very, very senior years with a decent wage. He and a young fellow, Paul, operate this thing. And the young fellow was, I've known him for a long time too. He's your age, but I've known him since his 20s. He had fallen on very hard times as well. He makes about $85,000 a year, and Bill, they makes about 115 now. So between the two of them, they make about 200 grand out of this thing. And by the way, I get a percentage, right?
Of course you do.
I said, look, you guys can stay there. This is a piece of property in the middle of nowhere that I wasn't doing anything with. I said, you can stay there forever. I don't care. We have a month-to-month lease. I could kick them out anytime and take it over. I would never do that. I would rather, I'd rather cut my pinky off, than do that. I love these people, and I get a bit of money out of it. So go for it. And as long as I'm around, you can stay there, right? After I'm gone, you don't have to deal with my heirs. I don't know what they'll say, but I don't care. And just stay there for forever. So learning is a huge thing, because otherwise you're competing with the Kahala Hilton in Honolulu, where you go there and every whim is taken care of. You want your nails done, you want a pedicure, you want a facial, you want registered massage therapy. It's all about spoiling yourself. Well, to me, that's just, I hate places like that. If you and Paula set something up like that, I am not coming.
Yeah, no, I know.
I just don't like them. My wife booked us into no, it wasn't the Kahala Hilton, it was some other really fancy place in Hawaii. And she said, Michael Douglas stays here. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's like a big actor. I don't care. I don't think I lasted 4 days. And I said to Don, I'm really not enjoying paying $55 for a raw egg in the morning for breakfast. Yeah, for $55 for like an egg and a piece of toast. Geez. So what we did was I organized, we rented 2 horses and a guide, and we went down a long trail to an isolated beach where they had 3 or 4 very rustic cabins, and we stayed there. And that was really beautiful. I mean, we had the horses and we had the trails and we had the ocean and a little cabin to ourselves. And it was very, very special. We got a set of twins out of that deal. My 2 33-year-old twins, Miriam and Matthew, they hate that story, right?
Yeah, I bet.
Ooh, that's disgusting, Dad. Well, that's where you were conceived.
That's funny though.
So I thought that was a much better thing than spending $1,000 a day in the Hilton or whatever the hell it was called.
Yep.
And it was a hell of a lot of fun.
I agree. So yeah, I think tell me if I'm wrong here. Like I want this to be something, I think it has to be something that we're interested in too, right? Like
100%. You remember we talked about it, head, heart, and gut, right?
Yeah.
Those 3 things have to be all in on this or don't do it.
And I think kind of our original thoughts and stuff like that on this were like, we kind of feel that society's kind of gotten away from nature. Everyone's so busy. A lot of people live within the city, and just kind of it's not the same as it used to be, right? For humans, I think the nature aspect is lacking. So that's kind of what got us going down that road. But to build a hook off that.
Yeah, sure. I saw that in your email, like a wellness thing, but there are probably a few million wellness places in the world today. What I wanted is a wellness place that teaches you this, and that's your hook, right? So I like the idea of a wellness, back to nature thing, but there's probably millions of places that say, hey, we're there. So I wanted something from you that was different. You remember what I'm doing on the LASQUETI, right?
You're doing bunkies, right?
No, well, yes, but what is my hook?
I don't remember actually.
Good, I can tell you because I
don't know. Have you shared that with us? I remember you showed us like some pictures and stuff from the property.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, I may not have told you what the hook is. You know, I put.
You may have though. I apologize. I forget sometimes. So
no, it might be my fault.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. That's a good point.
Can you see what I got here on the screen?
Yeah.
So you remember, I think I showed you the pictures of my site, my 10-acre site on the LASQUETI Island in the middle of nowhere. And I'm going to call it WATERHOLE Ranch.
I like it.
And one of the things that you're going to do when you come to WATERHOLE Ranch, hopefully you'll have all the things you talked about. You know, you'll go hiking, you'll go boating, you know, maybe you'll create a set of your own twins, you know, your significant other, you know, all of that. But there's going to be chickens and free-range chickens, because I'm calling it WATERHOLE Ranch, and the ranch is, we're not raising sheep or cattle or horses. They're hard to raise. We're raising chickens. You know, chickens, you look at them, they die, you know, but there's always another chicken.
Well, just first things, you haven't shared this with us, so I'm excited about this. A second, why did you choose chickens, just out of curiosity?
Well, it turns out, and I'm going to send you that slide deck, the one I just showed you.
Sure.
Because my oldest son, Andrew, is an urban farmer in Australia. He and his family.
You did tell us a bit about that. That's super cool.
And so he is a true expert in raising chickens. And excuse me, what we're going to teach people to do, and we're going to require them to do some work. Like they have to get up and they have to, every morning they have to go out and feed the chickens. It'll be easy. Here's the feed, you go throw it out on there, the free range chickens come along. Oh, this good, leave it. And you know, I mean, that's it. I mean, I'm going to have somebody living on site who's the real farmer.
For sure.
You know, but, I want to call it a chicken. I was going to call it chicken ranch until I realized, wait a second, the chicken ranch is a whorehouse in Nevada.
Is it? That's it
is. Yeah, no, there's if you Google it, you know, the chicken ranch.
That's funny.
It's illegal whore. It's illegal. It's illegal whore. In Nevada, prostitution is legal, and you know, if you've ever seen one of these places, I have seen them because I've sold a couple of them. It's very sad. You've got
I
all
bet.
these beautiful young women who are mostly Eastern European these days, very, very young and very beautiful, but they're like slaves. It's terrible.
Too
So
bad.
I certainly not going to call it the chicken ranch.
No.
So we're going to call it Waterhole Ranch because there's a water hole there, we discovered. And you will come out there and, because there's a lot of people who are interested in raising backyard chickens. So we'll teach you how to build a chicken coop, how to keep the foxes and other predators away, because again, chickens die from everything.
Yeah.
And my son dictated to me, I can't remember, I'll check now. He dictated these points to me, and I'm going to send it to the chicken ranch. There's can't remember how many. Look at them all.
Oh wow, eh?
Yeah,
Couple points
oh my
there.
God, there's 162 individual points that Andrew told me we have to understand to raise chickens, safely. But here's what happened with my son. He produces, these are free range chickens, and he produces these eggs that are humongous. And when you break them out, the yolks are orange, not yellow. And because there's no chemicals in it, this is what apparently a chicken egg is supposed to look like. And they're very yummy. I can tell you, I've eaten a few. And people will pay 3 or 4 times what they pay at Costco or Walmart. You can buy 12 eggs for very little money at Walmart. But he gets either 3 or 4 times that, and people like to know where their food is coming from. So again, there'll be lots of people who go to Waterhole Ranch who have no interest in chickens, but they'll know it's the chicken ranch.
Yeah,
that's
right.
my hook. That's it. It's not complicated. But you and Paula need. Now, I'm passionate about that because my son is passionate about that.
Yeah, no, it's
and
cool.
He knows a hell of a lot about it, and I know nothing.
So what for your, not to talk about too much about your stuff, but so your hook's the chicken.
The chicken ranch.
The chicken ranch. What other things are you going to provide?
So we will have a modular home, which will be 6 or 8 bedrooms. And then we'll have, I think, 6 bunkies. So on this site, the 6-bedroom home will be able to sleep 12 people. And each bunkie will sleep 4, and we'll have 6 of them. So we could sleep as many as 32 people. And what we're going to do with our Waterhole Ranch is we are not going to do short-term rentals. We'll put it on Airbnb, but we will mandate a month-long stay. If you want to come to Lasqueti Island, which is really off the beaten track, there's not even a ferry service there. I mean, there's a water taxi, but there's no ferry service. If you want to come to Lasqueti, let's say, you and Paula, you're a bit older. You said, you know what, Paula, we are going to freaking down our tools and go away for a month. We're not coming back. Where are we going to go? You're going to go to Waterhole Ranch on Lasqueti, summer or winter. Or maybe you have, by that time, you have a bigger company and you have 20 employees. You say, hey, listen, guys, we're all going to go to Waterhole Ranch, and we've rented the place for a month. You can come and go as you want.
Yeah, I like that.
So because I mean, we are going to do short-term rentals in Belleville because Paul has given us a lot of advice on how to do that, and we need the money. But for Lasqueti, we won't get as much money from a month-long rental as we will from a week or 3 or 4 days, but we're not going to do that. We'll have somebody, a ranch manager, living on site.
Yep.
And I think many companies will rent it, and it won't be that expensive. So if you think about a company, Lasqueti is here, California is there. And those people in California have money. Right now, they're going through some difficult times, but they'll come back. Those people are smart. And, to go to Lasqueti, and let's say you were a young developer. I'm not talking about real estate, but a tech developer. And you were, and Elon Musk says, hey, Jake, I need you to go away with the team and come back with a new Twitter product, right? Where are you going to go? Well, we're going to go to Lasqueti because we're going to have Starlink, internets. You know what Starlink internet is?
Yep. I do.
It's very good internet from Mr. Musk's company. And you just go up there with 20 developers, 30 developers. You just stay there until you finish the product.
Yes, yeah, I like that. And that's kind of like a bit similar to like our ideas too, with like you go away and for a week and reset and just kind of plan your business. Like that's kind of how we envision things too.
Yeah. So, I mean, for you and Paula, you're much younger than me, and you know, you might be quite okay with your farm being leased out on a week-to-week basis. But I wouldn't, you know, for the kind of stuff that you and I are talking, I wouldn't be interested in a 3-day rental. There has to be a minimum, in my opinion, and a week would be the minimum. For LASQUETI, we're going to make it a month. And what we'll say to people, some people, I know this will happen, will say, look, I only want it for 2 weeks. I say, no problem. You're renting it for a month, but you could stay there for 2 weeks. And the guy might say, well, wait a second, I'm paying for a month, but I'm only using it for 2 weeks. I said, I'll say to him, do you have a brother? Do you have a friend?
Take it for the 2 weeks.
You've got it for a month. You can sleep up to 32 people. You go there for your 2 weeks. And, you know, your brother takes it for the other 2 weeks, or your best friend takes it for the other 2 weeks, or the company takes it. I don't care. But if you want a 1 week or 2 week or 3-day rental, go somewhere else. There's lots of other places to go. You don't have to go to but that's it. It's a medium-term rental, but not a long-term rental. I don't want to do long-term rentals either. Right? Yeah. It's a month, or I would probably look at 3 months, but I'm not going to do anything longer than that.
Yeah. All right. So from reading our ideas and stuff like that, I know you replied to the email, but any suggestions at all?
Well, let me show you. I think I may have mentioned this to you before. I don't know if have you started reading Twilight Zone?
No, not yet. I have it though.
Yeah. Okay, great. I really hate you. I really want you to read this book. You know, I sent you that story I wrote this morning, right?
Yes, thank you for that.
I wrote that story because I didn't put it in the story, but late last night we got a call, and the young woman's mother committed suicide.
Oh,
wow. And she didn't have enough money to bury her mom, you know. So I wrote the story this morning to help people, including you.
Yes, thank you.
But I really want you to read Twilight Zone, because I think it'll help you as well.
For sure.
I do. It's another world. You'll meet some people that you'll recognize yourself in.
Cool. Look forward to it.
You will. And by the way, there's a tattoo artist in it too.
Oh, is there? Oh, well.
You have 1 or 2 tattoos, I've noticed.
I do have a couple, yeah.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, I get that. So, are you familiar with the big potato in Idaho?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Can you see it on the screen here? It's very small.
Yep.
I'm not going to change the picture. I can make it bigger.
No, it's all right. I can see. Yep.
Okay, you can see it, all right. Because this is the actual original copy of the book, and I don't want to screw it up. But this is a woman, a young woman. Let's see. I tell the story in the book. Let's see. This is a true story of a young woman who was making $13 per hour working odd jobs, including being a spokesperson for the Big Idaho Potato Tour. Idaho is famous for potatoes.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
She now grosses, listen to this, hundreds of thousands of dollars each year from her creative constructs, such as a potato-shaped tiny house southeast of Boise, which comes equipped with a Jersey cow, Dolly by name. This is a true story. Who it is advertised will be your fuzzy pet for your stay. So what is her hook? Her hook, she has 2 of them. Her hook is you're staying in a potato. This is an actual 3 or 4 ton potato here, where this is where you're staying. You're staying inside that potato. And you are responsible, because I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little tiny. There's a corral here, and in that corral is Dolly the cow, the Jersey cow, the little cow. And you're responsible for the 3 days you stay there, the week you stay there. Go out there and brush Dolly and make sure you give her some hay. Okay, so that her hook is a twin hook of a big potato and the cow. In addition to that, I don't know, again, it's very small on your screen, but there is sort of a spa here where there's a shower and a bathroom, but in addition to that, there's like I think a sauna and some other stuff in there. So she's got some nice stuff there. And basically you go there usually with your significant other, you take care of Dolly, you have a nice time with your significant other, you drink a couple glasses of wine, and you'd take some saunas or whatever else.
Yep.
Now, something else she did, this young woman built all of these. She built all of her Airbnbs herself with her 70-year-old mother.
Oh, nice.
It's so cool. Very inexpensive. They're not fancy. I mean, they're nice, but they're not the Kahala Hilton, right? She also has developed a jungle treehouse in Hawaii, a real-life hobbit hole in Washington State, and a converted fire lookout. You know, those big, tall fire lookouts? She bought one in the middle of a forest that wasn't being used, and she's got an Airbnb at the top of the damn thing. You've got to go up 300 steps to get there.
That's neat.
That is cool. So the reason I show you that is, you know, on each one that she does, you know, the fire lookout, you want to get fit, go up and down 300 steps, right? That's a long way up. And so fitness and the jungle treehouse in Hawaii, you know, live like Tarzan and Jane. So you've got to have a hook.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, people are looking for that sort of thing too, right? Like it's out of
they're looking for authenticity.
Like you said, when you're at that hotel and you're like, I don't want to pay $50 for a small breakfast. Let's go do something like that you can learn, you can experience, right? You can enjoy. So I agree with that.
So those three words, write them down: learning, experience, and joy. Those are the three words you just used, Jake. Those are the three power words that go with the model that we're talking about. And if you don't have that, you're going to have to do 10 times the amount of marketing for half the result. In other words, you know, you remember this? I don't know if I ever showed you this.
Easy button, yeah.
That was easy. That was easy.
You want to, I call this a magic marketing button. You want to have something that you press that button and customers show up.
Agreed.
And the three things you just said, experiences, joy, and what was the other one?
Learning.
Learning, yeah. That's your easy button. You know, and the big potato, man, you gotta book ahead, otherwise you're not gonna be able to go there. Her fire lookout thing. I mean, this is a young woman who's making $13 an hour, is now making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. She and her mom.
Yep.
And you know, I've gotten to know you and Paula a little bit, well, quite well actually, I think. And you're going to come up with something that's awesome. You haven't come up with it yet.
No.
But you will.
Yes, for sure.
All right. And you really have to work at this. And again, you have to be passionate about it. You have to know something about it. You know, you have to have some skills, and you have to have some knowledge, right? And it has to be something that people will really enjoy learning about.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever seen The Biggest Little Farm on Netflix?
No, I haven't. We kind of been, we usually, when we watch TV, we used to watch it at nighttime, but we haven't getting the kids to bed and stuff and trying to work after they go to bed, so we haven't had a chance. But what was it called?
Yeah, I'm sure you're super.
The Littlest Biggie.
No, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show it to you.
Okay.
So I really, really, really want you and Paula to watch this film. Okay, it's on Netflix. It's called, I think it's still on Netflix. It's called The Biggest Little Farm. Can you see it here?
Yep.
It's a 2018 American documentary film directed by John Chester. And it is truly a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful documentary. And what happened was this young couple, probably a little younger than you and Paula, but not much younger, were living in a tiny apartment in Los Angeles. And I can't remember which one of them, the man or woman, was walking home, and there was this dog that followed, I think, the woman home. And the dog made himself welcome in their home, in their tiny apartment. And they came to love this dog. But when they would leave to go to work, which in LA might be an hour and a half drive somewhere, or maybe longer each way, really through hellish traffic. The dog would whine and complain all day. And finally, their landlord said, "Hey, guys, it's the dog goes or you go." And this is a very nice couple. They couldn't bear to part with their dog. I mean, he's just a mongrel, but it was like their kid, you know? And I think she was told she couldn't have children, right? So that, you know, there you go. The dog became her son, yes, in a way. Sure. So they said, well, fuck this. LA stinks. Our life is horrible. You know, it's just not right for us. So they bought a farm very inexpensively, I think about 70 or 80 miles northwest of LA. Now, when they got there, the earth was so hard packed, if you took a spade, you know, a good strong spade, and you went like that, you couldn't dent the earth. You couldn't. You probably needed a jackhammer, you know, to friggin' dig a hole. And it was completely bone dry. I mean, you know what realtors can be like. I mean, I'm a realtor, so I better be careful what I say, but realtors might sell you something that's, you know, oh, this is great. This is wonderful. You know, it wasn't a big farm. It was maybe 60 acres, 50 acres. I mean, the documentary will tell you that. And they realized, holy smokes, we now have a farm that isn't able to grow a beanstalk. You know, we can't grow anything on this thing. So they hook up with an old fella who actually dies in the film just from, you know, I think from cancer, but he knows something about turning it into a natural farm where you're, instead of using a lot of fertilizer and insecticides and fungicides and herbicides and all the other stuff, you turn it into a farm where you use one predator to go after the other predator, and how to recondition the soil. And over the next 4 or 5 years, they turn this biggest little farm, so it's pretty small, into this incredible place. But what's interesting to you and Paula, I think, about it, is their cost of labor was negative. It's like a couple of an architect student of mine, former architecture student of mine, her name is Dominique, did exactly the same thing. She bought a property in Quebec, in the middle of nowhere, huge property for not very much money, with a couple of lakes on it, and she builds straw bale homes on the site.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
I did. And people pay her to come and build the houses for her. And what's it called? Oh, Jesus. See if I can find it for you. Yeah, I think I've got it now. Yeah, here it is. So she now runs a company called Solistera, and people will come to Solistera, very similar to what I'm doing in LASQUETI, and they will pay her to build the next cottage that she's going to rent out because they want to learn straw bale construction. Mm-hmm. So her cost of labor to build this stuff is negative. Do you understand?
Yeah, she's getting paid.
And the people at the biggest little farm in California, people would come from all over the world. These young people from Sweden, and beautiful people from Africa and elsewhere would come to learn organic farming, and they would work on the farm, and they would pay to stay there and work on the farm so that they could learn how to take these skills that these two young people in California had learned back to Sweden and back to Ghana or wherever they were from. Do you understand?
Yes.
There you go.
It's awesome. So
a couple of other things. So these are models I really like. And because you're a constructor, you might consider teaching people some construction stuff.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm just saying, because why not use the skills you and Paula already have?
Yep. I like that.
I mean, that just came to me as we were talking.
Yep, no, it's a good idea. Yeah, we definitely have to narrow it down and get our hook. And I think too, like Paul and I were talking, like it's like that your easy button, right? It's you don't want to always just take the easy path, but you know what I mean? Like you want, what's the saying that you have, like the quickest and easiest way to
take
revenue
the quickest route to revenue possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you decided people could come to your ranch in Florida and learn how to build a bunkie, and at the end of the week, the bunkie was done and they could ship it back home. What a friggin' hook that would be.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, I'm just talking off the top of my head.
No, for sure. They definitely need something like that.
So, I mean, imagine if I could come, you know, I would have to be a bit younger because now I struggle with 20-pound weights. You know, at 70, you know, I do 40 pounds. I think, oh, this is great. You know, as a younger man, of course, it was a little bit better than that. But anyway, you know, I still lift weights and do all the stuff that I should be doing, but it's much less, you know, than I used to do. It is what it is. But,
Yeah.
you know, imagine if all the puzzle pieces were available and, you know, you might only have 4 models, you know, you wouldn't have 100 models, but you'd have 4 models. I want this kind of a bunkie. I want that kind of a bunkie. I want maybe 3 models, you know, something like that. You know, 3 is a good number, you know, like Goldilocks.
Yep.
This is too hot. This is too cold. This is just right. So probably 3 is a better number because you want to keep it simple. And I could come down there. I could learn how to put my bunkie together, you know, assemble it, maybe customize it a little bit, break it down again, ship it back home. That's my week. That'd be a hell of a combination of things.
For sure.
I like that idea. Anyway, that's just me because you're a constructor and you could teach people that like that.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of stuff to think about. There's lots of options, but yeah, like you said, there's a million retreats out there, right? So you need to define yourself and have that hook.
I just love the idea of that. You know, come down, build your bunkie, pack it up, put it on your arm, take it home with you.
Yeah, for sure.
The other possibility is, you know, you do something along the lines of teaching people how to do backyard homesteading. Do you know what that is?
I do, yeah, and I like that idea too. I think Paul and I used to have a little hobby farm too back in the day. So
I think you told me that.
yeah, so that's kind of like one of the reasons too. We enjoyed that, and we see the importance of that. Like the importance of being able to grow your own food, but also like you mentioned with the eggs, like organic stuff. The amount of crap they put in our food these days is ridiculous, right? So
That's terrible.
yeah, so I do like that idea as well. And I would be not today, but sometime if you could share what your son's doing too, that sounds really cool. The urban farming, I think that has a bright future as well.
So I'll show you another riff on what we just talked about. And this is just one of the books I've looked at myself. 40 projects for building your backyard homestead, a hands-on step-by-step sustainable guide living. So something else you could do, like this is, you know, we're developing ideas as we go here, Jake.
Yeah.
And like I said, Paula may hate all of them, in which case you're going to do something else because you got to do something that both you and Paula enjoy. But if you didn't want to do, hey, come to you know, Jake and Paula's farm and build your bunkie and take it home with you, you could teach people how to do, you know, different types of backyard homestead projects and take it home with you, right?
Absolutely. I like that.
But something that builds on your skills as you know, you're interested in wellness. Think about wellness. Wellness, a lot of people think wellness is eating better food, getting good exercise, getting regular sleep, not consuming too much alcohol or drugs. Those are all good things. But wellness isn't wellness. That's only part of the story. The other part, as I said in the story I wrote this morning for you and some others, is moving forward, learning new things.
Yep.
And it's the learning thing that will bring people back again and again and again. And whether it's learning how to build a bunkie, learning how to build a straw bale home, or learning 40 different projects for your backyard homestead, that gives them the forward momentum and it lasts beyond, you know, like if you go to a you ever been to a Tony Robbins thing?
I've never been, but I've seen him or like on YouTube and stuff speak, but
yeah. So I put a couple of things in the chat box for you.
Yeah, grab the one there.
And there's another one I just put in. I just put this backyard, 4 projects for your backyard homestead. So just grab that. And I should probably put, I'll put, did I put Solistera in there too?
Yeah, I got the Solistera one.
I've got Solistera. All right, good. When Tony came to Ottawa some years ago, he invited me to attend his session and have lunch with him. And I said, oh, that'd be great. And I went to a session in the morning, and he's very funny, very personal, super charming. Like, no, there's no doubt. And he's funny as hell. And I laughed, and there were like 500 people there. Everybody had spent, like $500 or whatever it was back then. So, he made about $250,000 for the day. Now it would be a lot more, but back then it was still a good day's work, right? Mm-hmm. And then I had lunch with him. And I really enjoyed meeting him. I said, you're really good at it. But you know what his message was?
What's that?
His message was basically, if your body language is very positive, like, Jake, how are you today? And your facial expressions, and you're leaning forward, and if you're giving off a good vibe, if you're giving off a good vibe, people will respond to that. And if you notice during my coaching sessions, I try and be as upbeat as I can be, and certainly express myself with my hands and my facial expressions, etc. And so, everybody was buying it. But I can tell you something, Jake, 3 days or 4 days after the session is over, you're back to slouching in your chair and saying, my kids are driving me fucking crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
There was no, and some of my friends went to his Hawaii retreat where they spend 15 or 20 or 30,000 US dollars on that thing. And they walk on coals and they go, yeah. And then they come back a week later, they're slouching in their seats saying, my fucking kids are driving me crazy.
Yeah.
There was no lasting learning that I could sense. I mean, yes, I agree with Tony. If your body language is positive, if you're talking to a lender and you're saying, well, I'm not sure if it'll work out, things are, you remember Eeyore, who Eeyore is? Yeah. The donkey. Yeah. If you're Eeyore on a call with your lender, that's probably not a good thing.
For sure.
Right? Probably not going to lend you $350,000 the way you've done in the last couple of days. So he's right about that. I mean, there's some learning going on, but not very much. But if you show people how to build bunkies, if you showed them how to, assemble cool backyard homestead projects. My oldest son, as I mentioned, Andrew, the urban farmer, tells me that if you develop a backyard homestead, there's 1,000% ROI on that. 1,000%.
That's awesome.
I'm going to see if I can find it. I mean, I don't know anything else that would come close to being 1,000%.
Mm-hmm. How big's his plot in Australia?
So he has a home in a suburb. It's not big, it's bigger than a typical suburban lot. Typical suburban lot might be 50 by 100. His might be 100 by 100. He might have a 10,000 square feet, which would be a quarter of an acre. But he's got the chickens, and he's got the roosters and everything else, and he's got the chicken coop, and it has an automated garage door on it. Goes like that, and it's on a timer because his neighbors complained his roosters are really loud, 102 decibels.
Yeah, I remember we had a rooster too. They're cool, but yeah, they're loud. We didn't really have any.
His rooster, his name was Little Caesar, and he was the boss, And
let me tell you our name. Our guy's name is Lloyd.
I think Little Caesar is better because he was the boss, right? But Andrew had a decibel counter, and it was 102. And so at 7 p.m. at night, the garage door closes, and the rooster and the hens are inside. And at 7 in the morning, it opens again, and the rooster. Otherwise, the rooster would start crowing at 4 in the morning.
Yep.
Well, you would know that. So
does he eat his chickens or just eggs?
So he does not. They become, they become your friend. So just the
Yeah,
eggs.
we had like 30 of them.
But what he does is he does sell them when their egg production years are over.
Oh yeah,
He will sell them, and
Yeah,
other
absolutely.
people will eat them, but he will
He
not.
does.
He will not slaughter them and eat them. No, he will not.
Yeah.
It just that isn't his deal.
Yeah, I couldn't do that either. I don't think. Yeah, tough
But
to do.
I did find it. I think I've got it here. The 1000% ROI. Yeah. I'll read this over, but I have a little blurb. I'll send you the slide deck with how to raise chickens, and
Oh yeah,
I'll
thank
send
you.
I'll send you the 1000% ROI. But my son is an economist, so I trust him when he says, there's nothing that you and I do that has 1000% ROI. Nothing.
No.
All right. So was that helpful?
Yes, very helpful. We're gonna work on this tonight and this weekend, and
Okay.
get ready to go.
It'll be fantastic.
Are you okay to if I run? Don't feel obligated to reply right away, but run some ideas by you this weekend. Email.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's what I'm doing. And I'm really glad you and Paul are coming to Merida in February.
Yeah, we're
It'll be
excited.
so much fun.
It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait.
It'll be really fun. We'll spend the mornings, as I said, talking real estate, talking about your farm,
Yep.
and what else? And then the hotel is a beautiful hotel right in the middle of Merida. Merida is this fabulous town of 1.3 million people. Very peaceful, as I mentioned to you. Home of the Maya people. They're little tiny people. They're very peaceful. And it's not a beach town, right? I mentioned that. So if you want to go to the beach, it's about a 35-kilometer drive. But it's culture and food and music, and it's just an amazing place. And then we're going to go and swim in a cenote, the underground springs.
Oh, cool.
We're going to go and visit a Mayan village and see how they live. We're going to go visit some ancient ruins. So we'll do some adventure tourism.
Can't wait.
And we'll talk real estate, and we'll have a movie night and some other stuff too.
Awesome. Can't wait.
So the only charge that you have to worry about is, and I'll send it to when I have time. It is the hotel is $1,675 for the week. It's a suite that you and Paula will have, and I think you're going to have to pay a little bit extra because breakfast and lunch is included for one. So the suite is obviously yours, but there's a little extra charge, I think, for the second breakfast and lunch, but it won't be much.
No problem.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruce.
Okay. And listen, I'm really pleased. The thing that we should achieve in 2023 as your coach and friend is, a minimum of $1 million in that fund.
Absolutely.
A minimum. And it'll just make things a little easier for you.
For sure.
See you.
Do it. Thanks, Bruce. Have a good weekend.
You too.